Every writer takes a different route towards their novel writing ambitions. And strewn along the path of this journey are often many discarded novels, novels etched with flaws from a beginner's approach. We probably all have at least a few manuscripts stuffed in a dark, dusty corner that we might rather forget. And if you don't yet have a few novels like that, just give it some time. As painful as it is, writing bad novels is often a necessary step on the road to writing a great one. And usually these bad novels sometimes fall into similar sorts of categories. So today, let's talk about some of the sorts of novels that beginners write. First up is the I have no idea what I'm doing novel. This is usually the first novel that you write and probably the one that you're going to learn the most from. I think for many writers, we jump into the writing process with both feet, not necessarily knowing what we're in for. Sure, you've read a lot of novels, that's probably what inspired you to write one in the first place, but you really don't know what goes into one. Your mind is just a blank, fertile canvas without any solid ideas of plot, setting, or character. You know what novels you enjoy, but you don't know why you enjoy them. You know what stories work, but you don't know why they work. You know you like certain characters, but you don't know why you like them. Well, all of this ignorance usually doesn't result in producing a great product. There's something magical about the first time you try to write a piece of fiction, the first time that you get inspired by an idea, the first time you put pen to paper. It's like stepping into a different world. It's like moving from watching a movie to acting in one. The process is completely different and much more difficult. Occasionally, this first ignorance-guided foray into writing fiction can yield greatness. Without any clouding or expectations, a complete beginner can sometimes stumble into new and inventive territory. But usually that isn't the case. Most people give in to self-doubt, or they get overwhelmed with the process, or they encounter problems that they don't know how to fix, and they give up part way. Usually, even if you do manage to tough it out, that first novel is not necessarily something that is all that great. But that's okay because writing that first novel is the first step. Writing is a skill honed through many years, if not decades, of practice, and part of that process involves filling your mind with a robust understanding of prose and plot, setting and character. We tend to romanticize the first part of the writing journey, but the actual experience is often painful, awkward, and underwhelming. Nevertheless, any journey begins with a single step, and diving into writing is kind of a first step that everyone needs to take. And an important lesson that you'll learn from trying to write your first novel is that there is a lot to learn. Next up, the "this novel has a really annoying problem in it" novel. The best writers use tropes and structures and common literary conventions for a reason. They make writing a novel way easier. Whether because of overconfidence or just general naivete, most beginner and even intermediate writers ignore these hard-learned lessons, which causes them to learn them the hard way. The result of this is a novel with some kind of structural problem that is really difficult to fix without major challenges. One kind of concrete example of this, so people will tell you that your story should be centered around either a character coming into a new environment or following a character that goes to a new environment. It should either be about a stranger that comes to town or about following a character who goes on a journey. An early novel that I tried to write didn't do either of those things, and it makes it really hard to do all kinds of things like exposition. Bringing a new character in gives you a reason to explain things to them and also to the reader. Same thing with sending a character to a new environment. You have an excuse to explain how things work and all the different elements of the story. But if you center your story around characters that already were in a place and there's nobody new coming in, then it becomes really difficult to do a lot of things. There's all kinds of examples of this. I also wrote a novel with a silent character who never speaks. That is really annoying to deal with. You really have to experience these sorts of things firsthand. There are plenty of things that I only learned after backing myself into a corner. Writing a novel, or in all likelihood several novels with these kinds of flaws in them, is a great way to ensure that you never do this sort of thing again. No matter how much knowledge you gain as a beginner, some lessons you just have to learn. And in the process of learning these things, you're probably going to create a few novels with such large flaws in them that they are difficult to finish or difficult to make not bad. Next up, the I've revised this novel 10 times novel. I think writers generally fall into one of two camps. You either write like a dozen different novels starting fresh every single time, or you lock into one idea and rewrite it like a dozen times. Both approaches work and will get you to similar places skill-wise, but they also have pluses and minuses. Starting different novels will give you a breadth of experience. You'll learn to write different characters in different settings, following different plots. The problem with this, the problem with jumping to new novels every time you finish one, is that you won't learn how to revise a novel. You won't learn how to improve an existing story. This is where focusing on one novel can really help because it gives you a lot of experience with revision at the expense of having a narrower spectrum of experience in writing because you're only working on one story. I don't think either approach is better, and as I said, you can probably end up in the same place skill-wise no matter which one you fall into. But regardless of whether you focus on revising a single novel or you write 10 different novels, there's probably eventually going to be some idea that you fall in love with. And this is a really magical experience. If you're willing to put many rounds of revision into a novel, then it's a sign that it's something you really connect with. It's a great feeling when you find that one idea that you can't let go of. I take it as a sign that you finally discovered what you truly cherish as a writer, that you found what connects you to the craft. It really feels different. There's a different feeling than this sort of infatuation that you get with a fresh new idea that's popped into your head. When you really like an idea and you're willing to put the time and effort into revising it to fully realize that idea, it's really a different feeling. I think this is also a sign that you've moved past the beginner stage, that you're willing to put in the hard work, that you're willing to continue working on an idea, even when working on that idea becomes somewhat difficult. And I think this is what really separates someone who's just a beginner from someone who is actually serious and dedicated about writing. Your ability to work on a project after that initial novelty and excitement has worn off. And the last type of novel that we'll talk about today, the "oh my god, I actually finished it" novel. I don't know how common this feeling is, but I remember early on when I first set out to try to write a novel, I had this really weird anxiety about whether I could actually finish something that was the length of a novel. Putting aside anything about the quality of it or whether it's publishable or worth reading or anything, I had a lot of concern about, can I actually get through to the end of one of these projects? When you do that, when you write the conclusion or the epilogue or the final scene of a novel, no matter how good it is from a quality standpoint, that's a really great feeling. It really moves this idea of finishing a novel from something that's impossible that you've never done to something that you've now done and is actually achievable. Yes, it is completely just a mindset shift on the part of the writer, but I think it's a very important mindset shift. You should feel proud if you manage to get 60, 70, 80, 100,000 words of a novel written and completed and having a coherent or semi-coherent story with a beginning, middle, and end that comes to some kind of resolution. That's a major accomplishment and one that you should be proud of. The first novel that you finish probably won't be that spectacular. Mine certainly wasn't. Neither was the second or the third one. But that's okay because this is a journey and traveling along the journey is what matters, not the destination or whatever. I think I directly quoted that from Stormlight Archive. Anyway, speaking of destinations, we've reached the destination of this video, which is the ending. So there you have it. If there are other types of novels that you or other beginner writers that you know have written, please tell me about them in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Is the cat behind me? He is.